In 2014, the extraordinarily mysterious playable teaser appeared within the PlayStation Store for the Sony PlayStation 4 console for download. The original focus of the visionary concept was a then reboot for the Silent Hill franchise. The main focus of the teaser was the mysterious ghost only known as Lisa. Before Konami console development on the game, there wasn't much known about Lisa and her tragic backstory mentioned from details in the trailer, but from official information depicted in the trailer and fond speculation, a theory had been presented as to who Lisa was and how she died. From the trailer, the ghost of Lisa is invincible and indestructible. She watched the player at every conceivable moment they were within the hallway, and according to information later discovered, Lisa was actually always lurking behind the player out of view and invisible to their vision. She can also possess the player if she were to get too close to them, but the ghost of Lisa can actually possess the player through other circumstances as depicted in the teaser as well. When the player is possessed by Lisa, they would hear her breathing behind them and also hear a third footstep while walking, aside from their own. It's been further theorized that Lisa's ghost can teleport and appear or disappear anywhere instantaneously, as sounds of her moaning or crying would be heard from her, as the sounds aren't heard like a normal woman or human being, more similar to distorted sounds as heard through some sort of device. Lisa's ghost's appearance resembles that of an unusually tall woman, somewhat thin in terms of body mass, and always has a forced smile upon her face. Through actions in the teaser show her face can't make more emotions, then they always revert to her face in a slightly tilted angle with the forced smile. The gown she wears is thought of as to be a dress which was originally colored gray before her death, and due to her death the color had been stained with blood and matter from her body. Both her feet were covered completely with blood. As with her fate, her right foot is in a high-heeled shoe while her left foot is bare. Lisa's ghost's right eye is missing with a bloody hole in the socket where the eye would normally be within. Conflicting information mentions that the eye was either shot through with a rifle or gouged out with a knife or sharp thin object. Validity to the rifle theory of her eye being shot out has more information suggesting that Lisa was shot in the stomach or abdomen as well, and this accounts for the blood stains upon the lower part of her dress as well as her legs being completely covered in blood that might have come as a result from excessive blood loss from a rifle shot to the lower region of her body. Lisa as a living woman was never depicted in the trailer besides a few photographs of a woman of Caucasian descent of unknown age seen within the hallway. There is conflicting information presented as to who Lisa's husband was and why he killed her, which resulted in Lisa's ghost being brought into existence as a result. The playable teaser begins with the player walking into a dark, hollow, concrete room. As passing through the room leads into the looping hallway. A radio atop a table in the hallway is broadcasting a news recording about two families being murdered by their fathers or husbands. One theory presented from the trailer had that Lisa's husband was fired from his job, and to cope he resorted to drinking and became an alcoholic. Lisa was later forced to get a job at a local supermarket. The manager at the local supermarket only really essentially let her keep her then new job because he quote-unquote liked how she looked in a skirt, as Lisa became pregnant soon after, and it's never mentioned if the child was her husband's or the manager's. An unknown amount of time later, Lisa's husband purchased a rifle from a local gun store and proceeded to keep it in storage within the boot of his car. Unknown reasons later had him remove the rifle as he searched for Lisa upon finding her in their home, and proceeded to shoot her in the stomach and the eye, killing her and her unborn baby, which her husband might not have been aware of. Upon hearing the rifle fire, Lisa and her husband's 10-year-old son came out to investigate and see what had happened, and was also shot dead by his father. His 6-year-old daughter also had heard and saw what had occurred, and later fled through the home and barricaded herself in the bathroom out of fear and confusion as to what was happening. Eventually, she was lured out of the bathroom by information presented that her father lied to get her out of the bathroom by telling her that everything that occurred had happened was just a game. Once she had emerged, he shot her in the chest with a rifle and she died as well. The commotion that had occurred in their home had alerted multiple neighbors, as they all had called local law enforcement, and when they located Lisa's husband, he was in his car outside the home, presumably in the garage, listening to the radio. Further information even more had it that he later hung himself with a garden hose, so he either escaped and returned to his former home to commit suicide in that location rather than the local gaol, or the information might have gone the suicide confused with someone else who was not Lisa's husband that had committed suicide. With all of the information combined, there was another family in the same house as Lisa and her children by her husband. This separate family was killed as well, but this other family's details of murder aren't exactly known. It's implied that Lisa's husband was indeed possessed by an entity to perform these killings, as during the murders of Lisa and her children by her husband, neighbors commented to police that he was chanting a series of numbers repeatedly, and the whole aspect of Lisa's husband's drinking, the emotional stress of losing his job, and the realization that that child Lisa was carrying might not have been his, could have left him mentally weakened enough to be vulnerable to demonic manipulation or possession. But it's never fully explained if these were factors in Lisa's husband's resulting in killing his family and eventually himself. Lisa's husband wrote messages across various locations of the walls in the home, hinting at the possibility that he was possessed by a demonic or spiritual being whom had controlled him physically and forced him to commit these murders. Writing on the walls of the corridor by Lisa's husbands were, quote, "I can hear them calling to me from hell," end quote, and, quote, "no turning back now," end quote. Even a message of him apologizing to Lisa for everything he had done and claimed that there was a monster inside of him, referring to possession or alternate personality, and this message was his remorse and guilt for what he had done. Lisa's husband's appearance widely varied through the trailer, from photographs shown as depicted around the house and in the hallway as a clean-shaven Caucasian man with short brown hair or black hair. Another photograph shows him with a large moustache, and another shows him with no moustache but thick sideburns of unknown age. Due to the trailer's cancellation, the only official information of Lisa as a character are these details of information that are confusing even for official sources. As some would say, all of these vague details were done on purpose, and real details or facts would have only been presented or confirmed in an actual Silent Hills game. Sometimes a character can be forgotten when there were no details to remember.